Hello, it's Rafael Gutierrez again, and today I'm going to talk about bone density and diet as it affects the bones. Because both of these, and actually physical activity as well, because all three of these are what make what you saw last week a possibility. Yes, if you want the bones to be able to break through bats, I'm not going to try it, but if you want that, you need to make sure you have the right bone density, and for the right bone density, you need physical activity, you need the right diet, and you also do need to make sure that you're lining everything up. If things don't line up too well, things break. And so with that, I'm going to start the video. I hope you enjoy this. Hello, I'm Rafael again, and what I'm going to talk about today is bones, bone densities, and a little bit on diet. I'm not going to tell you how to eat the best diet to eat, but I'm going to tell you how to find it. Now, first thing I'm going to tell you is about bone. Now, when you look at bone, you'll see it looks almost, the microscopic structure of bone looks almost like a bunch of trees put together, cut and put together. This structure is called an osteon. Osteo, whenever you hear it always refers to something to do with bone. So we have an osteon, which is the microscopic structure of bone. Now within that, you'll notice, I'm going to show you a picture, and you'll notice little dots all the way around inside the hole. Those are called, the spaces are called lacunae. And inside the lacunae, you have osteocytes. Osteo means bone, cyte means cell. Now, you have different types of bone cells, and the ones you see were at one point osteoblasts. Osteo again means bone, blast means maker. So you have cells that make bone, and they don't just make bone and then stop. They are constantly watching and seeing if you need to make your bone stronger. What usually happens is weight bearing triggers these cells to take calcium and phosphate from the blood and put it back into the bone. Now, if you're not getting weight bearing, you take the calcium and phosphate from your bones and leach it out. So that's one of the problems that a lot of times we're actually having with people aging, by the way, is that they're not doing the exercise they used to. So you're starting to have people with osteoporosis, many times getting it at younger and younger ages. Sometimes there are people who are saying that we may end up having an epidemic of osteoporosis as children are no longer doing exercise as they used to. We do have the structure of bone. It's dependent on a few different things. And now that you see it, I'm going to actually model something. Now these are 2 toilet paper tubes, which are a little beat up. And I'm going to use these to model bone. Now, the reason I'm using this is if I were to go to a butcher shop and get a bone and try to model this, I would really have a hard time. The reason is, if you take a gram of bone and a gram of steel, the gram of bone will be stronger than steel. A lot of people get really irritated, but wait, no, because steel is stronger than bone. Well, the truth is, when you look at it by gram, by weight, bone is stronger. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to start by putting weight on this. Now, you may expect that a small book, here's one, like this, well, obviously, the small book will obviously not do much to the bone. But when you get to a bigger book, something like this, some people may expect it to collapse. Then you get another bigger book, an anatomy book, and it's still holding. Now, what's interesting is this. It holds And it has an axial compression, which holds really well. Now, if we just take one book and put it at an angle, what ends up happening is it fails. So what we have is we have bones acting a certain way, like these tubes. Now, they're actually more solid, and they do have other microstructures that help maintain axial compressions. And you also have to remember that I'm using this thin cardboard. If you remember the histology of bone, you see that it does have the little holes, but it's pretty thick. Now, the other thing, though, that to remember is a lot of long bones have a hollow canal in the middle. And so they are going to act a lot more like this than you would think. Now, what this is actually showing you is this. When you're punching something like this, and you line your bone up, you can end up having a lot of power to compress it this way. But you angle it a little bit, and it bends. Well, when bone bends, it breaks. So one of the big things is if you want to be able to break, you want to be able to do a lot of these fantastic things, you need to make sure you're lined up perfect. When we're dealing with bones, we're actually dealing with a tissue, which is cells in some sort of other stuff, which a lot of times we call matrix. The type of tissue we find in bone is called osseous tissue, which is a type of connective tissue. And it's not stagnant, it's constantly changing. So if you're doing weight-bearing exercises, it gets stronger. If you're sitting on a couch eating potato chips, it gets weaker. And so if you want to have the bone density to be able to break a baseball bat, you do need the weight-bearing exercise. Now, why is karate so important for this? The Okinawan karate actually gave you an increased bone density. The importance of that is it makes your bones stronger, which means if you do fall, you have less chance of breaking than if you don't increase your bone density. It acts as a weight-bearing exercise. Now, why weight bearing is important is the osteoblasts. The osteoblasts are cells that are pretty much monitoring bone and the calcium levels. And if calcium levels increase, and there's enough weight bearing effect, it will take calcium and phosphate from the bones and incorporate it into the bones, making the bones more dense, meaning they'll be stronger. They will weigh more, but they'll also be a lot stronger. If you don't have this weight bearing, the osteoclasts come in to break down the bone. So it's constantly doing this. Now, the reason you want both cells is this. Sometimes people break their arms. Now, some people say, oh, you want to have a break so it builds stronger. Well, the truth is you don't need to have anything break to build it stronger. You can do it just by weight bearing. If you think of the people who are doing breaks of makiwara, you don't start just wailing on a makiwara hoping that, you don't break anything. You start soft and build up. So the osteoblasts can end up triggering. So that is one of the big things. Now, if you do break something, you actually do make tissue, a cartilage tissue, fiber cartilage around something, which then ends up turning into bone, but then you end up with a big lump of bone somewhere. And so you have your osteoclasts that help shave it back down. Now, the calcium and phosphate levels in your blood do have to be at a certain range. So if they drop, you're still going to pull stuff out of your bones. If they go up, you'll try to put them into bone. Now, I told you I was going to talk about diet, and this is the reason. Calcium and phosphate come into your body through food. You have to eat stuff that has calcium and phosphate to build up your bones. If you don't have enough calcium and phosphate, you leach it out of your bones. But there's something else you need to make your bones stronger. That is a hormone called calcitonin, which comes from the thyroid gland, and you also need a vitamin called vitamin D. Now, a vitamin is a molecule you need in small concentrations for normal use, for normal function. The neat thing is, vitamin D, if you don't have enough in your diet, you can usually get it if you have enough caloric intake and you're in a sunny place. So, if you're somewhere like San Diego, you can actually make your own vitamin D by being in the sunlight. Not right now because it's overcast, but you could. The other thing that is important is diet. Now, you're getting your calcium and phosphates from diet, but you also have a lot of other cells that need other things. You need a certain amount of fat, you need a certain amount of amino acids and protein, you need a certain amount of carbohydrates. And a lot of times now, people tell you, oh, this is healthy, or this isn't, and you should do this, or you shouldn't do that. Well, many of these people are not really looking at the research. Now, here's the funny part. There was a lot of research done on what's called the blue zones, and there's really most people talk about 4 blue zones. The main one is Okinawa, where you have more people living over 100 than anywhere else in the world. If you did in Okinawan karate, you've heard of the Okinawa, the land of the happy immortals. Well, they were actually doing certain things that we're now finding. Now, one interesting thing is, if we look at the age of a lot of the old karate experts, they were living up to 90s back in a time when the life expectancy was 40. Now, a lot of people will tell you, oh, but people die, kids died young, and that's why. Well, yeah, except one of the other things is seniors are also the ones that people always worry about dying. That's why they always try to get them to get the vaccines for the flu. The big thing is they had the right diet, and they traditionally the Okinawan diet is one of the ones that they've recommended for longevity and health. The other blue zone that a lot of people talk about is Sardinia, which is an island on the coast of Italy. Again, you have a lot of people living over 100 happy, healthy lives. You have Icarus, which is an island in Greece, which again, people are living long, happy, healthy lives. And the last one is a peninsula in Costa Rica called Cayo Peninsula. It was at one point part of Nicaragua. I'm not going to talk about politics, but it is actually a place where people have been found to live longer, healthier lives than anywhere else in the world. Now, when you look at all these people, you see that they do have balanced diet. Their staple in all of these is some sort of grain or rice. Interesting to think about it because people tell you, oh, avoid rice or carbs and all that. But when you look at Okinawa, when you look at Sardinia, when you look at Icarus, when you look at Costa Rica, the Cayo Peninsula, you're dealing with a staple which is carb-based. They also do eat meat. All of these eat meat in the form of fish. A lot of them eat pork. I think a lot of them also eat lamb and sheep. But what you're seeing a well-balanced meal with fruits, vegetables, carbs. What we used to call the 4 basic food groups, they have it in the right concentration. I know now they're talking about my pyramid, or I don't know what the newest fashion, but what you see is you do see that these are the 4 places where people are living longer, healthier, happier lives, and they have the relatively similar diets. The right diet. First of all, you are getting all the nutrients you need to make sure your bones are healthy and strong. You're also having the caloric intake you need to make the vitamin D if you want. Actually, that's kind of funny to think about too. They're all in areas which are relatively nice, warm, subtropical areas, right? But that's one of the big things is if we're trying to get to where these heroes are, diet is important. So is the weight-bearing exercises, and so is the lining up. So we can get a skeleton that's, 5 times stronger than steel, and we can make it even stronger still through exercises. Now, a lot of the exercises that are done, for instance, the makuhara, do also change certain aspects of your skin. You can get calluses, and I've actually seen some people who have calcifications in the skin surface, which means that these people, when they hit, they're hitting with pretty much a rock attached to their hand. So what I am telling you is, yes, it is possible for martial artists to get to a point where people would be shocked at what they can do. If you weren't shocked at the other 2, I don't know what the 2 I showed you, I don't know what to show you. These are actually things that can happen. So ideally, we do want to have strong bones throughout our lives, but those strong bones, the stronger we make them, the more we're able to do with it. There is one thing I need to tell you about, and that is something that a lot of people think. A lot of people think to make your bones stronger, you need to break them. Now, it will make them a little stronger, but it's at a cost. Truth is, bones will grow just on the bone density. If you break them, you're actually doing damage to the cells. You're doing damage to the tissue, to the cells, to the nerves inside the bone, and so you don't want to do it. And a lot of people, there are actually runners and dancers and even martial artists who will push their bones to a point where the bone fatigues, just like anything. If you drive cars, you know that sometimes metal can fatigue. Everything has a fatigue point, even bones. And if you don't watch it, you can stress fractures of the bones. But you can get these fractures which end up making your training pretty much decrease in efficiency, not increase. So this whole idea that you hear, oh, work it out, make your knuckles bleed, it's not the best idea in the world. Take yourself to the point that you're pushing yourself, and then bring it down. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this actually showed you a little bit more on what the human body can do. And I hope to see you next week. Goodbye.